That's right. It's National Accessible Air Travel Day. Thanks to Michelle Irwin and the folks at All Wheels Up. And I am Dave Stevens. And normally you see me on the Geary Stein and Stevens show. But today we are helping out our friends at All Wheels Up. And I am so excited to talk about what we are representing and what we have going on with our friends at All Wheels Up. So let me start bringing in our folks on this wonderful panel. Let me, of course, first bring in the president and the person that created All Wheels Up. That would be Michelle Irwin. Michelle joining us from her home. And of course, she's a big part of what we do with this conference. And we'll have more of that later in our show. But Michelle, I wanted to say hi and welcome and talk a little bit about what All Wheels Up has meant to you. And again, we are here. I'm here at the Outer Banks on vacation. Michelle is at her house. But tell us a little bit about what happened, why you created All Wheels Up, and where we are with this amazing day.
Yeah, Dave, thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity. I really appreciate being here to talk about all things accessible air travel. It really is a passion of mine. I started All Wheels Up back in, I think 2010 now. And it started because I have a child who has spinal muscular atrophy, and we learned really quickly how difficult it was to travel as someone who uses a wheelchair. We had a bad experience. At that time, my son was very small and his wheelchair was small, but we still had, really difficult hurdles. And I was sitting on the airplane and I was upset, and I just didn't understand why there wasn't a wheelchair spot on the airplane. And so when I got home, instead of just being frustrated by the situation, I started looking up, are there organizations, working on accessible air travel in the vein that I wanted it to look like, which was a wheelchair spot on airplanes. And at that time, there was no organization working on it. And so I just decided to, I just wanted to, get the research out there. So I started All Wheels Up, and we started funding research to prove that a wheelchair spot could be technically feasible.
And we've gotten this day. It started out a couple of years ago, and here you are. And we've got some great people who are part of this All Wheels Up initiative, and I'm going to start bringing them in here if I can here. So let's see. We got bringing in Alex Gardner, Alan Chalette, and of course, Stephen Cullen, all wonderful people who are a big part of our organization. And I'm going to kind of let you guys roll with it. For here we are at All Wheels Up. So, Alex, if you want to start jumping in and again, explain who you guys are, what you do, and why we're all a part of this amazing initiative.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Steve. It's a pleasure to have a chance to work with this group by Candle Communications for All Wheels Up. And we're joined here, obviously, by Michelle, and then Alan and Steve, board members. And Alan is also a co-founder of All Wheels Up with Michelle. This is a great day to talk about accessible air travel through the last decade, over the last decade and more, and where we see things going into the future. And so we also had followers and friends of All Wheels Up submit questions to us, things that they're interested in learning about our work. What we're doing and where things stand now. So thank you to all of you for joining here. Michelle, you gave a great little synopsis of, how you became part of all of this work. Alan, I know you were a co-founder too of this group and had a group prior to this. Do you want to share too how you got interested in All Wheels Up? And what why you thought you should get involved?
Yeah, of course. So my biggest dream throughout my life has always been to be an entrepreneur. And after I graduated college in 2013, I was thinking about what kind of problems could I solve what kind of business could I make? And yeah, and just the problem of airplanes not being accessible was just a huge problem that just kept popping up, and just someone had to fix it. And like, like I thought like my skills could really make a difference here. So I discovered a petition by someone with my disease, Duchenne muscular dystrophy, in the Netherlands. He had a petition hoping to make airplanes wheelchair accessible. I reached out to him, and we created our own organization called We Want Accessible Airplanes. We worked on that for uh, quite some time until we discovered Michelle and what she was doing. And we decided we just had to merge our organizations and work together. And yeah, that's nearly 11 years ago now. And while in many different areas for years, it used to be just me and Michelle. And yeah, it's been an honor my lifetime being part of this and working with such great people.
That's
And I
awesome.
know, Alan, I want to talk about, let's get to right to the chase about why is air travel so deterrent for those of us in chairs? I mean, it is a nightmare for a lot of people, especially those with an electronic chair. And Michelle's initiative, and we can show some video of what we're trying to do, because I know it really hinders people with a disability wanting to travel.
Yeah, like for me, I'm one of the millions of disabled people that we just don't fly, period. There's some that fly pretty regularly, but the vast majority of us don't. The last time I flew an airplane was 10 years ago, and I actually used that as research for All Wheels Up. Like, I took pictures of so much of it, like the travel chair and like the whole process. And yeah, what's especially tough is wheelchairs cost tens of thousands of dollars. Like they cost like more than some really good like cars. And just it like it really is our legs. Like it literally is just able-bodied people worry about like having their legs broken on every single flight. And it's tough because like the US, like we're one of the most like accessible countries in the world, and we still have a lot of work to do. And there's great progress being made. So we definitely like change is happening. It's just a matter of when.
Thanks, Alan. Yeah, it's excellent. And I'm in a wheelchair as well. I think Michelle, obviously a family member of someone in a wheelchair, the mother, no less, a very important connection to someone in a wheelchair. You and I are in wheelchairs and wheelchair users and have full lives and go out there into the world and need accessible transportation and need the ability to travel. I think the last 40 years, travel has been pretty economically feasible for people, and we're kind of the last group that really has been kind of left out of the opportunity to get around the world in a convenient way. Steve, I want to make sure that we get to you too here before we get too far down the road, and thanks for joining too. I think that your background is really interesting and indicative of the kind of breadth of experience and knowledge and expertise that All Wheels Up has. You're the chair of All Wheels Up of the board, and you have a career as an aerospace executive, and were a veteran of the Air Force. Can you talk a little bit about the various, backgrounds that we have within All Wheels Up and how that makes us uniquely positioned to be tackling the problems and the hurdles that we experience in trying to establish wheelchair spots on planes?
Sure. Yeah. I think one of the things that makes us unique is we have deliberately tried to bring in people from various disciplines. I mean, my background, as you described, I saw where technically this is feasible, and there's never been a doubt that this can't be done. in that. It's just the hurdles that need to be overcome. We brought in members who come from the aircraft framing manufacturing side from Boeing, that used to be working with Boeing and bring a different perspective in terms of, especially when we're doing testing on the wheelchair restraint systems. We also have members that come from cabin design and understand what's in there, along with we've recently been bringing in people from healthcare, the medical side, because there's a human factor that sometimes is overlooked when we're looking at the engineering and the crash testing of various pieces of equipment in that. So that's been very helpful to broadening the board as well as financial and having with us not only the some advocacy expertise and a wheelchair perspective as to moving forward. Because one of the things that we see in what we do is having those in wheelchairs have a say in being able to state what is important is critical to what we're doing. So I think with our various background, we're positioned to keep moving forward to where we can reach the vision of a wheelchair space on commercial aircraft.
I think, this might sound like a basic kind of question, but, I think this is what people want to know. What are the biggest hurdles? What's the biggest hurdle to making this happen? Why hasn't it happened yet? We hear about equality and equity and accessibility and all other forms of transportation in our world, especially in the United States with the ADA, which doesn't handle aviation, but what are those biggest hurdles? Just to kind of give a context of why things have moved slowly in this area. Michelle, maybe you would want to answer that.
Sure, I'll jump in and then I'll let Steve go. I think he's definitely intrigued by this question. Yes, the ADA, there's a big misconception there. That does not cover specifically air travel. It covers your airport, and your airports are accessible, but the airplane itself is not. And it's not because the airlines were able to get out of it. It was because 4 years earlier, there was another law created specifically for air travel called the Air Carriers Access Act. And so within that law, it's a little broader scope and just didn't really define things maybe as well as the ADA. But in regards to the hurdle specifically, it's, the airlines can't put something on an airplane that there isn't something like a product for them to purchase. And so that's what we're here to do. We don't make anything, we don't sell anything, but we're here to work with the industry to give them the information and research that they need to go and develop that specific product for the airlines to purchase.
Now, wait, before Steve jumps in, we do have a way to support us for those that are watching and listening, being able to help us, and they can go to bonfire.com and help us by buying one of our shirts for AWA National Accessible Air Travel Day. I have mine, but it is a gray one. The orange ones look great. And again, you can purchase those. They'll get to you and you can show your support or get it for somebody that you know that's in a wheelchair, because again, what we're trying to do is really, really important, and it affects so many of our friends and relatives and people. So, Steve, let me get back to you so you can answer Michelle's question.
Yeah, I'd like to add to it. From the technical standpoint, last week I happened to be at the National Institute for Aviation Research, in which they're conducting one of our, we would probably call it crash tests, and where one of the hurdles right now is, even though we know technically this is feasible, and that there are tests that need to be done. And the tests that we were conducting last week, we did 4 of them, and they're on the wheelchair tie down and occupant restraint systems. And these systems have been tested for ground transportation, but when we get into testing for aviation, we're not only looking for the testing of that horizontal, but there's a vertical piece of the testing that isn't done. And through these tests, in which we go out and we have to find funding. Muscular Dystrophy Association provided us our initial funding for the tests we were conducting last week, and then we get support from companies like Q Strains that provide not only expertise but products that we can test. And from it, we see the successes where even when there's failures, when something doesn't work, these are things that need to be done that then get fed into uh, all of our research. Once it's done, is open to everyone. We roll it in. Hopefully, the FAA will find value in what's been done as they set up the standards and the criteria as to how you implement this in an aircraft. So there's tests like this going on to overcome the hurdle. There's also the need for studies on the economic piece of it. And one of the things that we advocated for and is in the FAA Reauthorization Act is to conduct a study to look at how do you do this from an economic, and it could be from a tax percentage tax, or it could be marketing factors, it's other things, but that's an important hurdle that has to be overcome, as well as the testing of the technical ones. So
I
hope
think
that,
you brought up a lot of great points, a couple different points too that I wanted to talk about today, Steve. So thank you so much. I guess like first to this crash testing, uh, it sounds pretty serious, right? It's we're literally strapping these wheelchairs and wheelchairs that have already that are electric heavy duty wheelchairs that are already built around vehicle crash testing standards, so they're already pretty rigid and strong. And then so you're testing them against the force like forward forces as well as downward, in vertical forces. Is that right?
yeah, that's correct. I mean, last week we were doing two. The first test was that, as you call it, the vertical, and that with a 30 degrees and going at 14 Gs. And then we did a one where the wheelchair was looking at yaw was 10 degrees off, and then at 16 degrees, what happens to the restraint systems. So when these are being done, they're being recorded and everything is hooked up so that we can get the data for if there is a failure, we're able to see what went wrong so that manufacturers, engineers, and designers can take corrective actions for these to withstand what's required in these, what we might refer to as crash test from an aviation, which is that forward and the vertical and the yaw. So there's a number of things to be looked at. And again, a lot of great work's been done on the ground, the surface transportation. And there's some work being done now on the how do these certified wheelchairs withstand an aviation emergency situation. For us, our focus, though, because there has not been a lot of research on it, is on the tie down and the occupant restraint system.
That's really great to know, and I think this is also kind of what sets All Wheels Up apart from a lot of the other advocacy groups that exist promoting wheelchair accessible travel and wheelchair spots on airplanes. Is that right, Michelle? I mean, we're kind of the only group that's really focusing so much on research, and that's not all we do. Obviously, we're advocating and working with lawmakers as well. But this is a substantial part of what we do, and that's unique.
Yes, All Wells Up, I think is one of the only organizations with the sole focus on accessible air travel, and also specifically funding and conducting research on the technical side, as well as, white papers supporting medical needs and things like that. So absolutely, we are definitely unique in regards to also the way that, we use our research to advocate to push, accessible air travel forward. So our message has always been positive and responsible, and part of that is meeting the industry halfway. We mimic ourselves like a cure-based nonprofit. And so think of how a cure-based nonprofit, starts the initial research on something, and then a larger pharma company will, take over. That's how we've positioned ourselves. And I think that's why we have success with the industry. We have skin in the game, and when the industry has questions, we help them fund it.
And we've created this amazing day. I know a lot of work that Michelle has gone into, a lot of letter writing, a lot of campaigning, and this is how people can support us. They can either go with a direct donation, donate your vehicle, stock, your gift card. You can text FLY to 7070, donate on eBay, go to our website. Michelle, talk about how did you get this day finally in the books where it's actually not just National Eating Chocolate Day or something silly crazy. This is something that actually is going to make a difference.
Thank you. Yeah, we're really proud of this initiative for National Accessible Air Travel Day. We really wanted to raise awareness for the need to improve accessible air travel. And we understand that accessible air travel is, more than a wheelchair spot on airplanes. And so, this day is to recognize that accessible air travel is needed for all disabilities, and the work that's needed and the funding that's going to be needed for that as well. So on August 19th, which was just yesterday, the nation celebrates National Aviation Day, where we celebrate all of the accomplishments done in aviation. However, when I went to national calendar, I said, I put it as, well, on the 19th, we celebrate all of the wonderful accomplishments. We also need to recognize more work needs to be done. And so that's how we were awarded August 20th, the day after, recognizing that we need to work on working with the industry on safer and dignified accessible air travel.
And of course, you got to have a commercial to go with it, right?
I love that, Dave.
But we also have to talk about, and we're going to get Steve and everybody involved here in just a couple of minutes, this amazing conference that you guys have set up over the years that really has made an immense, mark in with airlines and people and politicians and Tammy Duckworth and Pete Buttigieg. And I know it's coming up in a couple of weeks once we get this holiday going. So, Michelle, talk about the love and everything that Alex and Alan and everybody puts into this amazing conference that you've had really, really successful getting people involved with All Wheels Up.
Yeah, first and foremost, I want to recognize and really give a shout out to our amazing board. The All Wheels Up organization has really been able to push this initiative forward because we have an amazing board, and some of them obviously are here, and Steve Cullen is our chair, and our board is we're all volunteer, and they do spend countless hours, and that's also included in this conference that we put together for the industry to just have really robust and honest conversations on accessible air travel. And so we started this global forum back in 2017. At that point, there was only 25 people in a room, talking about accessible air travel. And I'm really proud to say last year we had 165 registrants. And those organizations include, Boeing and Airbus and the airplane seating manufacturers. And as you can see there, Tammy Duckworth, and she was our fireside chat. And so this has really grown to really be a room to really have those difficult conversations and really move the initiative forward. And I'm really grateful to the board who helps really facilitate and pull it all together, because this can't be done by one person. This really is an initiative by a lot of passionate individuals.
It's amazing, Michelle, too, I think, in this kind of a virtual world that we're all in now, especially post-pandemic, how you rallied from that. I mean, you were doing, these forums before and now still after, in a world again where we all kind of connect virtually. People are coming to this in person to be there, and you're pulling in all of these people that wouldn't really be in a room together to be able to talk during the conference and then after the conference. That's got to be a huge benefit.
And Steve, does this give you hope that you're going to be able to travel again in the near future?
I think with what we're doing, I think you're going to see traveling that will become more open in reality for those who cannot travel now, or um, see that the increased risk that's associated with air travel has deterred them from going. So our efforts and what we're working with in a collaborative, positive way to move it forward. Yeah, I think we will. And as Michelle has stated, it's more than just the mobility, it's accessible air travel across the board. And so I think we will see going forward more uh, opportunities for travel as we open up. And Alan may be able to comment on that too, in terms of how he might see that.
Yeah, Alan, are you going to come back to travel?
Yeah, I hope so. I'm definitely planning on it. I'm preparing all kinds of ways to be able to do it myself. And yeah, I think I definitely have the travel bug. Like, there's so much of the world like I want to see and explore, and like millions of other disabled people are like that. Like, there's so much of the world that we're just missing. Like we're missing like family vacations. We're missing like weddings and so many important things. And yeah, it's really going to change the world for everyone when airplanes are accessible. And yeah, we're really helping like unlock the world for so many people. And yeah, I've been in this 11 years, and the progress we made has been enormous and really fast when you consider that like it's the government and industry. And yeah, we're very optimistic about the future.
And somebody's dog is very excited about National Accessible Air Travel Day, so that's good. But as we continue this, and I just kind of wanted to throw to the elephant in the room, which all of us that have had wheelchairs know about, and that is the lack of training, the lack of handling nature that they do. And again, everybody pointing the fingers. Oh no, it's this airline. No, it's the TSA handlers. So they just continue to write checks, yet they don't fix the problem. And I think that's, you can write us a check, but if you have an electric wheelchair that's going to be in the shop for weeks and you have nothing to back it up, it hurts us. And I want you guys, Alex and Alan, everybody to address what we can do to make those. I was just last week, they took my wheelchair and shipped it off to Hartford without me in it. And I sat on a tarmac on my ass on a skateboard for 45 minutes until they were able to pull it up. So we're not doing better, but we can work on training and education. But I just was wondering if you guys have some horrible stories or the damages that have happened to your chairs.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have had issues in the past. There's a huge reason that kept me from traveling for a long time. I have a portable kind of uh, lower tech wheelchair that I use for flying, and I'm fortunate enough to have been able to, purchase one of those so that can help me. But it still is such a struggle to have to. I mean, you're kind of, in a sense, saying a prayer when you are flying and you're getting out of your. First of all, you have to get out of your wheelchair. Many people are not able to do that, and safely due to different physical issues and disabilities. And so then, but when you're handling it over, you're essentially giving up your freedom. You're giving up uh, this machine that lets you get around. And so I again personally am kind of, saying a prayer, saying I hope this thing it makes it to the next location safely and without any issues. I have a friend who has been posting every day. She went to a conference. She uses a wheelchair and is a professional. She graduated from college and has a full time job. And she traveled and has been without a wheelchair for a month already since it was damaged when she arrived at her destination. So she had to use a portable wheelchair there that someone was able to secure for her. And now, only 30 days out, as the order for the new wheelchair, the replacement for her wheelchair, been initiated. So she's not going to see, her legs essentially for another month or two, if she's lucky. Um, Steve, I know you're a expert on the training that goes into handling of wheelchairs and equipment. Maybe you want to talk about what the issue has been and issues have been, and how we want to address those, and how we've been trying to address those.
Yeah, I wouldn't call myself an expert, but I've become very knowledgeable on it. And when we're talking about the training, we're not just talking the wheelchair, handling the wheelchair, but we're also looking at the human aspect as to, for those who assist um, passengers who require wheelchairs, there's that dimension, because not only are the passengers who require the wheelchairs getting hurt, or the risk of being hurt is high, it's also those who assist. And so the training, and one of the things that we are looking at, is how it should be done in a different way, changing the paradigm of the training. Want to be able to look at more of a healthcare focus in terms of how they're trained in assisting people with wheelchair requirements. So it's a different way of looking at it, and it's also taking in perspective anyone who is assisting and preventing them from getting hurt in the process. And it's going to be there's been a lot of movement. It was addressed in the FAA Reauthorization Act. We put in, working with Paralyzed Veterans of America and about 40, 50 other organizations, submitted our input to it, which starts with the input from the person, the passenger who requires the wheelchair, given their input on how that training should be done, and listening to the passenger along with any caregiver. So there's a lot to be done, and there is a lot less than that next month when we're bringing together stakeholders. We have a panel that will talk about various aspects of it. So more than just the wheelchairs, and that's extremely important with the wheelchairs and scooters, but it's also that human aspect.
And you raise a great point. You raise a great point, and I know Michelle and Alan and Alex, we've all experienced this. We are so vulnerable when we're at airports, and we're already going to be stared at enough as a sideshow almost, and then to have people with lack of training. And I think we need to teach more empathy instead of sympathy, so they know what we're going through. I know they've got the TSA cares things that are starting to happen, but that training, you're dealing with barriers of language, where many of these trained people don't speak English, and they're not, and they're used to a certain culture and a certain way of handling things there. And I know, so some of my personal experiences, the worst part is how they handle treating us, and bringing us special attention and getting over the loudspeaker. If somebody with a disability, please check in. I mean, we don't need that. We're already stared at as enough. And I think we really need to get behind the trainings. And I don't know if it's the airlines that can work better with TSA, because again, they're separate entities. Mm-hmm. The people that handle stuff are not hired by the airlines.
I think you've got, it's a good point. And I think you have to look at it from when you enter the airport to when you exit, and all the training that's required for anyone who's assisting along that journey needs to be looked at, as far as how the training is done. And training for different members has to be tailored to how they function. It's the same way in an emergency situation in the aircraft. It's the aircrew that's needs to be trained to manage that, and that's different than someone who's assisting you going through the airport. So a lot of work to be done, and that it's moving in the right direction. And I would say over the last especially 3 to 4 years, we're starting to see things move in the right direction. And the right
Steve,
direction is getting
that inclusion of this aspect into the FAA Reauthorization Act, which, if people don't know, every so many years the FAA is reauthorized, right, by the federal government to get funding, and then there are mandates and regulations that are entered into that bill, the reauthorization, so that they need to follow up on certain things. So what that first step, just to clarify, is for the training of people that are handling people and handling the equipment of passengers with disabilities. It's to first kind of get together those bodies of those stakeholders, if you will, and the people in wheelchairs, so that they can talk about what the important factors are, so that way they can build out how training would work. Is that the first step?
Yeah, I would say it's the inclusion of of people with disabilities, that they're included in the start of the training and also as you go along. It's a very important element, and not including that human piece is would be a big mistake. And I think what we've seen, especially from that we're working with, the fact that we're able to come together as a coalition and provide those inputs to the U.S. Department of Transportation, that's a great first step. And it's in all along this process, it needs to continue that way to where there's a back and forth. In that. So
Let me ask Michelle this, and Alan. You started this a long time ago. Are you where you wanted to be, or are you where you thought you would be, or are you far from where you want to be?
I think we're exactly where I thought we would be. When I contacted the FAA, gosh, almost 15 years ago, I had asked them the question, do we expect air travel to look the same way it does today? And that was 15 years ago. Nothing in air travel is quick, right? It's a very conservative industry, and there's a lot of testing and standards and regulations, and nothing is fast tracked. And if we want to make sure that this works, and we want to make sure that everyone in that cabin, not just the person in the wheelchair, but everybody in that cabin is safe, we really need to make sure that we are doing it the right way. And so, and I think with our conferences and the methodical way that the industry is moving through this, I think we're exactly where we need to be. We're asking the right questions, and we're funding those questions. The next step, is the logistic questions, right? We've proved that it's possible, but now it's, well, how do you book it? How does it happen? How does it, what is that next step? And those are the kinds of questions that are going on in our conference. And so there's more to come. And so, I will not, say, oh, this is the date when you can expect to see a spot on an airplane. That's not All Wheels Up's position. It never will be. We're here just to, facilitate the research, facilitate the conversation. We have to respect the industry for what they stand for, and we're just really, we're grateful to be a part of it.
Alan, what about you?
Yeah, I think like when we started, like no progress was happening at all, and we really got the ball rolling, and that was just tremendous effort, and just the progress happening since then has been incredible, and it's been slowly building and progressing over the years. And yeah, like it's not enough for how much like it should be. Like airplanes have been made accessible a long time ago, but progress is happening. Like it's definitely going to happen. Like one day when we can travel in our wheelchair, and I think just starting that momentum, I think that was very tough, and now like there's so many great people working on this.
And Alex and Michelle, I got to ask, because I'm a journalist, a lot of people try to take credit on social media for the things that you're doing, or giving misinformation of what the progress is. And I wonder if you guys could both address that.
Yeah, I'll just say, we're really grateful that a lot of organizations have taken on the platform of accessible air travel. But my position is that, we're just not going to put, a time frame on this. We also, need to recognize that, standards haven't yet been created. A product has not been certified. A product is not in a catalog to be sold to an airline, and no airline yet has committed to putting this on an airplane yet. So I think our message remains the same, where our positive messaging is, we don't blame and shame the industry for where we are today. We just want to move forward collaboratively. And responsible messaging is, we will not put a time frame on this and mislead the community. Like I said, that's not our position to say when there's going to be a spot on an airplane.
Alex?
Yeah, I think I want to hear what Alan has to say on this too, because he's very active on social media and a fellow millennial, Alan, like me. I love the support. I think there's been a lot of great um, individuals stepping up and talking about their own experience, and there are so many excuse me, so many people that are seeing those stories and things online and are saying, wow, I had no idea that these were issues that individuals in wheelchairs face. It's amazing to see the people that just did not know, but that want to participate in an active way, in a positive way, to try to change things and to say, hey, why is this? Why aren't we further along? Who are the people that need to take some action? But yeah, I really I am encouraged by the things that I see online and the folks that want to talk about um, where we are. And I think, like Michelle said, it's all of us coming together to work and address this problem because there are issues, and we know it. You're speaking to the choir, so it's great to have the support and just attention. I think from an audience and public. One other element of this is focus more on equity today, right? Where we are thinking about, which is great, and diversity of ethnicity and culture and background, and all of our is everything that we have is fits in this. We make up people in wheelchairs, make up all kinds of different individuals from all different backgrounds. This is the perfect time, while the world is trying to right some of the wrongs in our society. This is a perfect time for us to take this mantle up and move it forward. And
And
so I love it.
Michelle doesn't get enough credit too. I know you guys work hard, Alan and Alex and Steve, but I mean, Michelle's brought in some heavy hitters like Tammy Duckworth, Pete Buttigieg. I mean, you've been in DC, Michelle. I mean, we're making great progress. I see you at Capitol Hill, and they're listening, and I really appreciate that work that you've done and the positivity that we have going forward.
Absolutely. The industry, congressionally, we have a lot of support. I want the community to recognize that and know it. I think, the community still sees that, there might not necessarily be the progress that they want, but the progress in regards to the open-mindedness and willing to have the conversation, and their eyes are not glazed over when you say, or fear when you say a wheelchair spot on airplanes, they're engaging in the conversation. We had 165 registrants for last year's conference, and we're expecting this year's conference to be the same or even bigger. And we're having this year's conference at the Volpe Center, which is, a research arm of the DOT. So, yeah, the stakeholders are engaged, and I think that's really telling of where we are moving.
If I could add, I think it's important to also note that support we're getting when we've been advocating for certain changes from a legislative standpoint has been bipartisan. And when the FAA Reauthorization Act was approved, that was a bipartisan act. So we're seeing cooperation in areas that one might not think there's cooperation on the Hill, but we've been when we in 2023 we hit 26 offices in 2 days, and that's a lot of movement. And it was both on both sides of the aisle, and so it's encouraging to see that, because this is definitely a bipartisan issue. And so great support there, and we appreciate that there's dialogue. And what we saw during this past year was a huge movement forward to accessible air travel. So.
And I have to say, I'm bipartisan because I care so much about Michelle's initiative. And you guys can support us. If you're watching this, you can go to bonfire.com and type in all AWA, National Accessible Air Travel Day. They've got these in orange. They've got them in gray. You can support us. And there's other ways to help support this initiative and cause. You can make a direct donation. You could donate your vehicle. You could donate stock. If I had stock, I would donate. But gift cards, all kinds of things. And we have so many amazing positive things coming up. I think there's also proclamations and things that are coming up. Alex, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, and Michelle may be better positioned to talk specifically about the proclamation. And Alan, I know they both worked with legislators and lawmakers. Would you like to take that one?
Yeah, I'll definitely jump in there. So, yeah, our advocacy committee created a sample letter to your state representatives to have your state recognize National Accessible Air Travel Day. And we're also asking, if you are in a city with an airport, ask them to also recognize National Accessible Air Travel Day. You can use our sample letter or write one yourself and speak from the heart of why this day is important to you. And, right now we have a couple of cities in Florida who have sent in their proclamations, Wisconsin, Massachusetts, and Maryland. And I think a few more are coming in today. So we're really excited and proud of, where this is going. And we're going to keep this initiative going on through 2025. So, get out your support if you're in a state that hasn't sent out their proclamation, and encourage your representative to do so.
Yeah, and I'd also like to mention that we're doing a social media challenge throughout the month of August, like in support National Accessible Air Travel Day. So we're asking people to post a video or picture of yourself wearing orange and telling us what accessible air travel means to you. And if you're traveling in August, we'd love to see a picture of you at the airport or on an airplane. And so be sure to use the hashtag National Accessible Air Travel Day and tag 3 of your friends in asking them to do the challenge. And we're asking people to be creative, and the best post is going to get a $25 Amazon gift card and a T-shirt. It's the T-shirt that we just showed earlier, and yeah, they're great. They came out really good.
Yeah, I think that we're. I think too. I'm going to start wearing orange every time I fly. To want the airports to be full, and people. I think that will see these shirts and or people wearing orange or something, and say, what's that about? So the more visibility that we have around this and what we're all doing and what our friends are doing, I think is excellent.
And if you know me, I always say, if you're going to stare at me, you might as well give them a show. So orange makes us stand out a little bit.
That's right. Absolutely. Dave, if we have a couple questions too that were sent in from some fans and followers prior to this, so if we have time for a couple questions,
Go for it.
For me to pose to the panel, I think that would be great. A lot of these we've already talked about, so I'm going to kind of skim through here. But there are these accessibility changes that we need for airplanes. Obviously, we talked also about training as well. Are there other airport infrastructure changes that we think would be needed for establishing a wheelchair spot on on airplanes? And infrastructure meaning like, to the airports or those types of things.
Yeah, so I'd love to talk about that. In the bipartisan infrastructure bill, there is so much funding to make airports more accessible, and the DOT has been posting about that, like ever since that law passed, I think 3 years ago now, and yeah, they're doing some big improvements to airports that people will start seeing like over the coming years.
And I know we focus kind of more on airplanes. I think it's interesting that I think from accessibility, most of the airport, and while you're in the airport, is pretty good for people like us. But I think people always think of, okay, what else needs to be done? If you fix this, what else needs to be addressed? And it's good that we're everybody's thinking through that. Um, and do
Yeah.
you think that, funding for wheelchair spots on airplanes is largely going to come, or the changes to implement these? And I understand this might not be something we can answer necessarily, but do we see where this funding is ultimately going to come from? Do you think it's going to be, maybe a mixture of the airlines themselves, the airplane manufacturers, maybe the government as well, and whoever feels best poised to answer that? Feel free.
Yeah, I think All Wheels Up has done a really great job advocating for funding. Obviously the community helps, fund our research. We're sponsored by some really wonderful organizations to do research. But again, what our budget is meager at best. And but the work that Steve and the advocacy team has done on the Hill has been phenomenal. For example, this year during our pitch to the Hill for the FAA Reauthorization Act, we asked for a Center of Excellence for accessible air travel, which would provide a sustainable source of funding for 10 years. So while we were not successful, say, in getting that Center of Excellence for accessible air travel, we were successful in getting funding redirected to an existing COE specific to work on a wheelchair spot on airplanes through advanced materials, because that was very specific to engineering. And so All Wheels Up is going to continue that position and continue to work to have Congress create a Center of Excellence for accessible air travel, so all disabilities can be researched, and all types of research can be done for whatever the disability is. For deaf, blindness, and neurodiverse are just some examples. But I know Steve did a lot of work on this, and so I'll let him, give a little input here as well. You're muted.
Can you hear me?
There you go.
Thanks. Yeah, I think this ties into a couple of the questions in that when we started looking at the need for a Center of Excellence for accessible air, that was important to address not just what's in the aircraft, but through the whole experience from when you enter to when you exit. And it wasn't just solely on wheelchairs, although it's important to what we do. But there is no reason with technology that's available now that airports and aircraft cannot be made more accessible. So there's work to be done, and as we've talked about during this period of time, it's going to take time to put this together. But a lot of work to be done to make it to where aircraft and airplanes and airports are truly accessible to all. So
One other question I thought was a good one that came in too, and it's kind of about all these different, aspects. We talk, obviously, we're in the United States, but we, do work around the world and talk to stakeholders around the world. There are different government air and aviation regulatory bodies, right, other than the FAA. And I'm wondering if you think that those organizations are going to sign off kind of on these wheelchair spots concurrently, and once one approves a wheelchair spot or a tie down or whatever, if that's going to be a cascade of everybody kind of jumping on board, or do you think that it's kind of going to be a trickle where some countries we may see significant advancements in air travel before other countries?
I'll jump in. I would say that I'm a little less versed in the space, but I'm going to be a little biased here. And I would think, now this is a Michelle opinion. This is,
Sure.
which I typically don't try to do, but I do think that this will be through the FAA. And then we would see a trickle down effect to other countries.
And we do, when we do the global forum, it's called global for a reason, where we are trying to be inclusive and bringing in from not just from the US, but from other countries. And we've seen an increase, whether it's Canada or coming in from Europe or South America. We are seeing an increase in that because there's an interest. Because when we talk about aviation and air travel, we truly need to be, if we're not, we need to be thinking global, because it is a means of transportation that you've got aircraft coming from overseas into the United States and vice versa. So it's a global issue, and we hope that through the efforts that we're doing, there's a lot of collaboration and it's moving in the right directions.
And you talk about collaboration, and I think I've been to the last 3 of them, and it blows my mind when you think we might be upsetting the airlines by saying we want this, we need this. We're not protesting, we're not screaming, we're doing it in a wonderful, organic way. And then these airlines, all these people, and I've seen them, it opens up their eyes, and they're like, yeah, how can we fix this? What can we do there? And it's been amazing, Michelle, to get you having all these partners to open up, what people thought wouldn't be possible just 10 years ago.
Absolutely. Our global forum really is about education, and what we've been able to provide the industry and the stakeholders is, just a growth mindset, as well as in addition to, the research that's happening. But, like we were talking about, collaboration is a keyword this year, and that's actually the slogan for our conference this year, and our conference theme is collaborate to innovate. So we're really excited about this year's global forum.
Yeah, and I'd just like to add that the videos you made last year, Dave, were incredible, and we would love for everyone to check them out. They're on our YouTube page, as will like a recording of this feed, and just look up All Wheels Up on YouTube. There's a short version and a long one, and we look forward to seeing the great video you make for this year, Dave.
Well, thanks. I'm so glad Michelle reached out, and I can't do enough because I'm a little different because I don't have legs. If the viewers aren't watching, they don't realize that I can get down and do things and lift up my chair, but my fight is for those that can't, like Alex and like yourself and all these people that we are the biggest minority in the world, and we have the smallest voice. And thanks to Michelle and All Wheels Up, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. The airlines are listening. They're changing regulations. They're changing acts. They're including us because guess what? We have money. We can travel. We can buy tickets, and we can fly. And I think turning this into a positive thing rather than we need our rights has been so much needed. And I thank you, Michelle and Alan and Steve for everything that you guys are doing.
To what you said, I'd like to add one other one. I think there's an economic piece to this, not just for the money that can be spent, but companies want to ensure that their workforce is able to participate in everything that those without disabilities can. So it's good to see that there's some movement there, and I think that voice is going to get louder and louder.
That's excellent. Yeah, one final question from our fans here too was the most excited thing you're most excited about in the year ahead regarding accessible air travel and in our work.
You know, sorry, I'm not even sure how to answer that question. All I can say is All Wheels Up is very busy, and busy is good, right? So I think that's what we're living. We've got a lot of great initiatives. Obviously, August has been extremely busy for us with National Accessible Air Travel Day. September is our global forum. Our team is working around the clock these next 2 months to really make all of this possible. And I'm going to be honest. Come October, I think we're taking a vacation, and then we'll really look at what our 2025 year looks like.
I don't know if I believe that, Michelle. You're always
November.
working, so I'll believe it when I see it. You're always hard at work.
Yeah.
And as we wrap, again, we want to bring up a couple of ways that you can help our causes. You can support our mission to create wheelchair spots on planes. What Michelle does is not free, and it is important to continue to support everything in the initiative that we're doing. So you can look at a couple of ways. You can text FLY to 707070, donate eBay. You can donate by check and send it to the address there listed above. Or if you want to look stylish and cool and fun and what all the hip kids are wearing these days, you can go to bonfire.com, type in AWU National Accessible Air Travel Day. You can get the shirt in orange. They also have it in gray. So if you don't have anything that goes with orange, you can get the gray one, and all proceeds goes to All Wheels Up. Final thoughts, everybody?
No, thank you so much for having us, Dave. And we're really grateful to do this for everyone on National Accessible Air Travel Day.
All right. Well, for Alex, for Alan, for Steve, for Michelle, and myself, I'm Dave Stevens. That's a wrap. We'll see you later.